Welcome to the weekly Russian comedian podcast. My name is Denis Nikolin, aka Russian comedian, and every week I have a guest, most likely a comedian as well, and we talk about the shows we do, our lives, and basically anything of interest. I cannot promise it to be hilarious every time, but I sure am trying to make it as interesting as possible. In my first episode, I'm talking to a comedian from Ireland, Byron Murphy, and his girlfriend Alina, right the next day after his solo show in the same venue. We're gonna cover life in China, differences between Irish and Russian people, Jews, and being a comedian's girlfriend. So, let's start.
Denis Nikolin, I'm the host, and we have two lovely guests tonight. It's Byron Murphy from Ireland.
How are you?
And his girlfriend Alina.
Hello.
So, a little bit about what's going on here. Byron Murphy just had his solo show yesterday in Moscow, it's your second time performing in Moscow, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Both times, just like say Friday and Saturday. Yeah. So 2 nights each time. So yeah, this is my fourth show, I suppose. Totally. Yeah.
So, when was the last time when you came to Moscow?
Would have been January 2016, I think. Yeah. First time with you guys over in a different bar and stuff. We had a showcase and then an open mic, and the showcase kind of went better than the open mic kind of went better than the showcase, I thought, because it takes you a bit of time to feel what people like and what people will laugh at and stuff. And actually, at the open mic, I kind of spend most of my time just making fun of the other comedians and stuff and playing back and forth. Like one Canadian guy was giving me a bit of hassle, I had to put him in his place and stuff, and that the crowd loved that. So I thought the open mic was way better than the show. And then this time I had open mic on Friday and then the big show last night. That was awesome. It was packed and people seemed to like it, so I was pretty happy with it.
How would you compare to experiences of performing in Moscow 2 years ago and now?
It's hard to say. I think that this time the crowd that we had just happened to be, I would say, more interested in listening and kind of more, I guess they were more of a crowd that were used to comedy or knew what comedy was, because they sat, they listened, they participated in a bit of crowd work, that sort of stuff. Whereas the impression I got 2 years ago is that they were much younger and they didn't really know what comedy was. Maybe some of them were just there to drink and stuff. So it's kind of, I would say that would be the biggest difference. They see, and the stuff worked way better. I don't know if that was because I kind of, I did better, or they were more used to comedy as an idea. So I'm not sure. But
And as a native speaker, do you think that they understood you better this time?
Ooh, that's hard to say. I think yes, because everybody said to me, Alina and other comics and stuff, everyone said, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. And look, I obviously I've done comedy in China for 5 years and stuff, and people always say slow down, but there's only so much you can slow down before you start to lose a bit of your style and you kind of ruin it for yourself. But last night I did make an effort to maybe not slow down, but enunciate things a bit better and make things more clear or act things out a bit better. And so I think that really helped. That kind of acting things out definitely helped a lot more, and leaving pauses to let people catch up, I suppose, to the joke kind of worked a bit better last night. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, you're not the fastest Irish I've met.
Right, and
fastest speaking,
That was because of much work. I'm from a city in Ireland which is famous for having the worst accent, the hardest one. Yeah, Cork. A Cork accent is famous, and if you actually meet proper Cork, Corkonians as we call them, you find it difficult. You definitely will find it difficult to keep up. And we have our own words that we use that nobody else understands, and they mean different things at different times. And so you have it was a long process of slowing down and kind of speaking more, I guess, neutrally and stuff. And so this is my slowed down speech. I know some people will be like, God, I can't understand it now, but this is my speech absolutely slowed down. And if I was speaking at home, and I find myself getting in that pattern, you go home, all your friends are speaking fast, speaking normally, and you don't need to slow down. So then it takes a bit of time, and I speak to Alina and she has a blank face, and we have to slow it down again, and get back into that process. So that's a bit of a process.
Did you have to train for that? Did you have to put a cork in your mouth?
Oh, great! I've never heard that one before. No, I guess I just I got told many times by the comedians in Shanghai, you gotta slow down, slow down, slow down, and eventually it kind of took hold.
So Shanghai, tell us a little bit about that experience. So you've lived there for 5 years. Is that correct?
I studied and then worked and learned Chinese and stuff. Yeah, I did basically everything you could possibly want to do or need to do and stuff, and then got out.
And got out. Okay, that's
5 years.
That's good.
I was sentenced to 10 years, but I got out in 5 years of good behaviour, so they let me go. Yeah, that was great fun. It was really great. It was wild. The perfect time to do it as well. I went when I was 23. I was young and it was kind of a nice experience abroad. I lived in America for like 6 months before, but I never really lived somewhere abroad long term.
Right.
So that was my first time and stuff. It was awesome. Like I lived in if you ever go to Shanghai, like if you stay in the city centre, you'll have no problem speaking English to people and everything's comfortable. But I lived. I called it Chinatown. I lived in actual.
No shit, it's China.
Yeah, I know. Right? So, but in the it was proper. Like if you didn't speak Chinese, you weren't eating food. You weren't. You were going nowhere. You were screwed. So I had maybe 6 months of pointing at stuff and hoping for the best, and then eventually you learn enough to live, and then eventually you get a little bit better, and to the end you eventually suppose speak Chinese, quote unquote, because you never get it perfect, but yeah.
But tell us, I think everybody has this question on their mind, like what brings an Irish boy from Cork to Shanghai?
Yeah, I am. So the reason it was kind of I suppose.
So young man, Irish young.
Yeah, Irish boy. I like how every time you mention Irish boys, you're always like best Irish boy. It's like
oh yeah, let's not.
Sure. but yeah, no. So what I was studying in Cork in the university there, and I did a master's, and one of my lecturers there who was interested in this stuff, and he recommended me to do a master's in Shanghai with a professor he knew over in Shanghai. So I kind of got in touch with that professor, and he was interested and he was happy. So he got a scholarship and went over there and studied. And so that was great. I first studied Chinese philosophy, which is pretty cool, pretty wild, totally different to what we would have. You wouldn't really have a chance to study that, obviously, in Ireland. So it was, it was unique, something that was kind of unique. And then, I was always interested in politics, and even when I studied other stuff, I always tried to make it about politics and that sort of stuff. So I kind of transitioned to politics.
Did that make you become a comedian? Did you become a comedian in China?
Yes, I became a comedian my first month in China.
Was it like a defense mechanism against the environment?
No, I don't know. Do you know what I think it is? And it's funny because I just had my 5-year anniversary, and I kind of I still have photos of that open mic. But what it was I would never have started it in Ireland because Ireland's so small. Everybody knows everybody, and so many times now that I'm doing shows, people will say, "Oh, my friends are there," and "Oh, my friends know you," and stuff. Everyone knows each other, so I would have felt very nervous to try it in Ireland because if you fail, obviously, like every comedian has the first time, it's like, what if I fail and it goes really badly? You make it a lot worse than it is, and I also had the fear if I mess this up in Cork, everyone will know, and I'll be the laughing stock of the town, and my life will be ruined. You exaggerate it, like. And then I came to Shanghai, and my housemate just happened to be a comedian. He had done comedy in LA for 2 years. Barney is his name, and he said to me, I'm going to go do an open mic. Do you want to come and watch? And I said, sure. And then he said, why don't you try and do it? To make people laugh and stuff. And I thought, well, I think every guy who's ever seen a comedy show has thought to themselves like, I think I could do this, or could I do this, and so I'll try it. And I tried it, and they liked it, and it went, for a first night it went pretty well. And obviously after that I hit roadblocks and stuff, but it went pretty well. And then after like say 2 months, I was getting put on shows.
Move. Have you seen later? You
off
perform
the races, yeah.
You perform in Moscow in front of 90 people.
Yeah, and that was good. And I went to Singapore last year, and we did like something like 110 people.
I don't know. Who cares about Singapore? Moscow.
Only Moscow. Yeah. No, it's been great. And obviously, I'm taking any chance I can to travel abroad and do jokes in different countries, because I know that a lot of the guys in Shanghai have that problem where they stick. You find it hard to make jokes that aren't about the city you're in. You want to make universal jokes that work everywhere, and so that's what I've been kind of working on.
How many countries have you performed in so far?
Something like 6 or 7.
6 or 7. Okay. What's your favorite country to perform in?
I think the comfort blanket of Shanghai is the best.
Because you lived here.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said last night, I had to take out all of my China material because I just know it won't work here. I got jokes that would. That would always work pretty well in Shanghai, that just wouldn't work here because nobody would have the reference, about the toilets and about the bikes, the bike situation in China and stuff. All these jokes that are easy, nice, comfortable, get people laughing at the start of the show especially, and they just, couldn't use that. So I'd say Shanghai is probably the best. I found it difficult in Ireland to kind of, really catch what people like. I wouldn't say I've struggled, but my shows haven't been as consistent as I would like them to be in Ireland now because I've been doing shows in Ireland, and I think I really need to figure out how to restructure my jokes to really kind of get to the Irish audience. That's been. You wouldn't think it'd be a challenge, you'd think it's your home country, it should be easier. But I guess it probably will be a challenge to get to that level of getting good in Ireland too. And it's very competitive in Ireland as well.
Of course, everybody's a comedian.
Everybody is a comedian. Yeah.
I presume you guys, Alina, you met Byron in Shanghai, right? Yeah. When he was a comedian, right?
Actually, our first date was during his show, comedy. I didn't know back to that time that was a date. He just invited me to listen to his jokes.
It was a date, yeah.
yeah. Retroactively, it was a date. Like if it had gone badly, it wasn't a date. But if it goes well, it is a date. You know how it goes.
You cheeky bastard.
Yeah, of course.
But I remember first time I was listening to his jokes. I couldn't get anything just because of his accent, and I really got like maybe two jokes, laughed twice.
In 7 minutes,
I was just
7
sitting
minutes.
like asking my friends to translate to me because my friends were spending China more time and their English was better. And I was just asking every time, what is this about? Is it about me?
On the first date, yeah.
And man, that was like one of my best shows. 7 minutes of like because it was a competition, so you put all your best bits into like 7 minutes, like good, big joke. And so like at the end I was like, oh my god, so hyped up. Did you like it? And she was like, yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
I laughed twice.
I didn't understand what he said.
She was like, I laughed on the inside. Which what every comedian loves to hear. It's like, oh yeah, that's great.
So I think for the first time ever, we have an opportunity to look into inside of the comedian's couple's life, and for the first time ever, I think we can ask a comedian's girlfriend, what do you think? How hard it is it to live with a comedian and actually like to travel with him? Do you travel with him? Do you like his jokes? So go, you have 50 minutes.
No, I don't want to talk about that for 15 minutes.
I said 50.
15 minutes.
You can do it for days, man. Days.
The only thing I want to say is that like the preparation of the joke always comes through me. I always have to approve the joke.
So he checks it
He checks it on me. He has many rehearsals with me. And the difficult thing about that is that many jokes, like 80% of the jokes are like made up or like this is not about me, and people when after the show he introduces me as his girlfriend, they're like, oh my god, this is the real joke, and I have to explain all the time, no, this is not about me, that was just a made up joke, or maybe that was 50% truth, I have to always clean my reputation after that. So that is hard. And as for traveling, I enjoy traveling with Byron, like meeting people and listening to the jokes again
and again.
Actually, I'm not listening to the jokes, I'm just watching the audience, their reaction. After the show I try to give Byron some advice on how the audience react, what do they like, what they didn't like at all. So I'm more like focused on looking at people in the crowd.
I get a lot of actually perceptive stuff from Alina. Like she points out stuff about, like, say, the way a room is set up. Let's say you have, like, I did a room there in July where the whole room is bright, and Alina pointed out that you can see the crowd, and that really didn't suit my style because some of my I like to tell a few stories, and that requires people to kind of come along with you for a while. And if you lose, they'll lose interest. They might be looking at other people, or if it's too bright, they won't focus on what the comedian's saying. And so, yeah, it's definitely true that you do. Like the room we had last night was perfect. It was like dark, and like the stage was very bright, and you couldn't really see the crowd, but you
could have heard them.
Yeah, you can hear them, and you can see the front few rows and stuff. So it's like it was definitely, that sort of stage definitely more suits my style. I don't know, maybe it suits everyone's style more, but it definitely suits my style more.
Well, thanks to the Loft Moscow, where we did the show yesterday, and now we're recording this podcast in its basement.
Of an Armenian multifunction room, it's like all things for all people. There's a gym, there's karate lessons over here.
Yeah.
There are children upstairs.
Remember the green room, which is like actually like women's dressing room. Like
the women's. Yeah, that was great. I think that was a crime. That was great. But and we.
It had a smell of garlic.
That's our fault. That was our fault.
Yeah, that was your sandwich. That was your chicken sandwich.
Funny story about there, right? So for the people who weren't
Oh,
there,
no shit.
I got yesterday about 6 p.m. I went into a Greek restaurant and got a sandwich, chicken sandwich, you know, and all day I thought about eating it, but I didn't want to eat it before my show in case it wasn't safe or whatever. So
You were going to throw up?
Exactly. You don't want to do that in a show, you know. So I left it there in the green room, and apparently it smelled really bad, and everyone was complaining about it, and we had to close the door to make sure it didn't go into the
into the room, yeah, on the stage, yeah,
and ruin our show. So okay, fine. I left it there, and as I was leaving, you know, I thought, oh crap, you know, I forgot my sandwich. I better go back and get it. And Alina told me, no, look, I already threw it away. And I thought, oh no, you know, I've been thinking about that sandwich for so long. I really wanted it, you know, I really wanted it. And when we got home last night, the place was still open. So I went back and got the exact same sandwich and ate it before I went to bed. I was like, finally, I can get you back, you know.
Byron and the sandwich. That should have been the name of the show.
The Greek sandwich, yeah.
The Greek sandwich, yes.
That sounds dirty. That sounds like a double entendre. Like,
oh yeah. Greek sandwich in a former Armenian theater on
in a Moscow,
on an English comedy show
in the middle of nowhere in Moscow, yeah, in the middle of the Soviet Army Street.
Yes, and it's in the Soviet Army Street next to the Soviet Army Museum
with the big rocket,
which is next to the Soviet Army Theater.
Yes, of course.
It's like fucking like Inception.
Yes, it's proper
Soviet Army Inception.
It's like if you want Soviet Army, you come here. You know, it's the best Soviet Army place in the world. You know, this is where all the excitement is. You know,
where else can you get?
Exactly. You know, it's like that.
Do you find like Irish people and Russian people different? You've been here several times. So
yeah.
What can you say about like the
mentality? The more I think about that, the more I think that like even if it was the same, I would say in China, you know, everyone really exaggerates how different people are, but actually like, you know, the differences make up such a small part. It's like everyone wants the same stuff. You know, they want to get like, you know, get a good job, get a good girlfriend or a good wife, get a nice house, and everyone wants the same thing and be successful. It's like the differences are so small. Like you might have differences in how you appreciate time. You know, like you know, you might have differences in how distant you are from your boss. You know, can you talk to your boss, or are you afraid of him? You know, we have differences like that. But by and large, I think people are the same. You know, and I've always found I got on well with Russians. You know, and obviously with one particular Russian, but in general with you know, I think that, you know, we enjoy the same stuff. You know, obviously the stereotype would be that we all like drinking and stuff, and yeah, okay, that's true. But you know, we you know, it's also other stuff of like, you know, we get on sports and movies, and you know, we have so many common points of reference. You know, I don't find any difference in talking to Russian people or talking to Eastern European people in the EU or, you know, wherever. It's like, and we have tons and tons of Eastern Europeans in Ireland. You know, you have Latvians, Lithuanians, and Polish people and stuff. And, you know, we all get on great with them. I mean, they love it in Ireland, and we like having them and stuff.
What about humor? Do you think humor is different in our countries?
I always thought it was. You know, I always thought that Russia had more of this, I suppose, the German sense of humor of them. Everything has to be more obvious and everything like that. But I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think people are getting more sarcasm and subtle humor and stuff.
We always had dark humor in Russia.
Definitely dark humor.
I mean,
yeah.
How could we not?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. True, and you know, I think that's a part of it. You know, it's like in Ireland we had, you know, the reason we have so much dark humor is because we had a bit of a dark past, and you
and the environment, of course.
Exactly,
you live on an island.
The only way you can manifest that in a positive way was to make fun of it and so on. And I think Russia, you probably had the same thing. You know, you get dark humor, and you have to draw some sort of positivity from a dark time. You know.
Okay. I guess. Alina, do you like Irish humor? Do you like Byron's jokes?
I don't know what is like Irish humor. I know what is just humor, you know.
Me neither, actually, but everybody's talking about Irish humor or English humor, so that it's like very sophisticated, kind of like subtle.
Oh no, she won't agree with that. She won't be calling my jokes sophisticated.
Like, our humor became a bit similar because we spent together like 2.5 years, and it's a bit sarcastic, and so I don't feel like much difference, you know, between my humor, for example, and his humor. Maybe just because we spend a lot of time together.
Okay.
Yeah. But I definitely would say that there are more differences inside groups of people than between groups of people.
Uh-huh.
Just judging by my experience in China as well, Russia, like talking to Europeans and Americans, there are definitely like more different people, but the differences are not between like nation or countries, difference inside the group of people, you know.
You know, you're right, and you know, I want to tell you that you're actually like the rare example of of a woman who actually understands the exaggerations in comedian sets, because like most of the comedians' girlfriends, they get offended, even though like they probably know that the jokes is not about them,
Right.
but the joke is for the sake of the joke, you
Yeah.
know. But like I've experienced many times, like you know, that they don't get it, you know,
Yeah.
and they get offended. It's not really about you or about us. It's just a joke to
Did
make
they laugh?
people laugh.
If
yeah.
they laugh, it's great. It's
You laughed as well. Like
Yeah.
you were sitting in the audience, you were laughing at this joke. Why are you giving me shit for 2 hours after the show? Like
the classic.
it was about us. It's you hate our relationship
Yeah,
and
yeah.
blah blah blah. No, it's like the joke. We get like, I mean, of course, we comedians we get energy and inspiration from our misery, but yeah, I mean, thank you very much for explaining that. It's all exaggeration.
No, I think Alina's been very good as well. Alina's been very good as well. Like she would never, even you know, because I do joke about Alina, especially in Russia. Last night I spoke a lot because you know I thought people would would sympathize more with like you know talking more about like what it's like having you know going out with a Russian girl and stuff. And Alina's never got offended at my jokes or anything like that. I mean, you know, she's when it comes to comedy, at least I'm pretty safe. You know, I don't get in too much trouble over that. So yeah.
Yeah, but if you make a joke on the like in the flat like
Yeah,
at home like you're dead,
yeah,
like
yeah,
you're
of
done.
course. That's the day rule. You know, I get the face, day's over. You know.
I think everybody has to learn how to make fun about themselves, you know, because it's a big skill. I think I learned it from my childhood because I'm Jewish, and at school, like you know, there are a lot of Jewish jokes, and you know.
In Russia, there's a lot of Jewish jokes.
Yeah, in Russia. I mean, I went to school in Russia, and like since childhood, everybody were like, you know, you tell them that I'm Jewish, and like everybody, oh, I know a lot of Jewish jokes, you know, and you have to listen.
And you'd be
to
like,
them.
yeah, all right.
And then you kind of realize that the person doesn't want to offend you or something. It's not related to Jewish people at all. It's just like
It's just like an
stereotypes.
icebreaker. It's just an icebreaker.
Yeah, and you have to laugh at that, and I don't know. I think.
Have you ever heard a Jewish joke you never been told before? You know.
There are too many Jewish jokes. You know, I'm sure that some of them I've never heard before. You know.
Because I think it's really hard to not like. I mean, I don't know, but I think like if you're Jewish, it's really hard not to know, like you know all the Jewish jokes. You know, basically. No? Okay. Because yeah, in Russia it's a thing. Yeah, we. I wouldn't say we hate Jews.
Jesus.
But we have a history.
But you know what I think is I will just say with the Jewish sense of humor. I think that you know nobody really has a better sense of humor than Jewish people. Again, and I think it comes exactly from that history of when you have a dark history, you manifest it like that, and that's why you see like Mel Brooks and stuff like the best comedy ever and self-referential. You know, it's always like self-critical and like he's like that movie Jews in Space and stuff. You know, and just like they're flying in a spaceship shaped like the Star of David
stars.
It's all you know self and self-critical and so I think the Jewish sense of humor is amazing. You know, so they're more than willing to laugh themselves, but like you know people are also more than willing to like make fun of them also. So it's like it kind of spirals out of control a little bit. You know.
Of course. Most of the the most popular Russian anecdotes and jokes were written by Jewish people. So it's like
it's like in every culture, you know, they just like they're all with the comedians, you know.
Of course.
The writers and stuff.
But I definitely didn't want our podcast to turn into like Jewish talk.
I know.
like we kind of let's.
You can rebrand it, you know. You can do both. You can put a Jewish Talk Weekly and
Jewish Talk Weekly with Denis Nikolin. Do I look Jewish to you? Like, I think I'm the wrongest person to talk about.
No, let's talk about the bar mitzvah. You know, that's the most important part of a boy's life. I'm told. Never been to one, but I'm sure it's great.
You know, I mean, I would go to bar mitzvah.
Oh, I'm sure it'd be great. You know, we do a set there. You know, we'll do a show at a bar mitzvah. That'd be awesome. You know.
What's that?
Are you kidding?
Okay, let me explain to the only Jewish person here who it's where a boy, you know, like the bat mitzvah. It's where the boy goes and he's like, you know, he becomes a teenager, he's 11 or something, and he reads the Torah and all that sort of stuff. You know. Does he get his
No,
that's birth. That's
okay.
birth. No, that's already done. Yeah. There are cultures,
but maybe second time. No, okay.
Yeah. They trim a little bit more. You know, they go back and double check. Like, did it fully take, or is he only half Jewish? You know.
Okay, so it's your second time in Moscow.
Yeah.
And in Russia, it's not his second.
It is my second time.
Second time.
Both times I've gone to Moscow and then St. Petersburg. So I'll go to St. Petersburg tonight.
Oh, as a Moscovite, because I was born in Moscow, like raised in Moscow. So my question is, which city do you prefer more, St. Petersburg or Moscow?
I'm going to do the political, because I'm sitting here with a Moscovite and a St. Petersburg guy.
You're from St. Petersburg, right?
I'm going to do the politically correct thing and say that I like the city of St. Petersburg more because it's more beautiful. It looks like Paris.
And the ladies from there, yes.
Ladies from there. Everything in St. Petersburg is very beautiful. Everything in St. Petersburg is beautiful. And then I think on the Moscow side you got a lot more lively. It's a lot more. I think people are friendlier, which some people are surprised by. I thought people in Moscow were friendlier, and it's more lively and there's more stuff going on and it's more exciting. And obviously from what I've heard, there's no comedy at all in St. Petersburg and stuff. So Moscow definitely has more going on. I think it would be easier to live in Moscow, I would say.
I mean, that's the stereotypes we have about like our former capital. That's the people there are like zombies. They're just like in constant hibernation. They move slow and they always smoke and read poetry.
Oh, of course, the culture of capital, of course. It's like the Paris. But it looks like Paris, and it's like, of course, and it's like we were at the gallery yesterday, and like all the you have the St. Petersburg gallery, the Union of Artists, and they were obviously the big spoof merchants of their time. The lads are obviously drinking all day, drinking wine, like, oh, I do not have to work, happy days, and painting and stuff. So yeah, you can kind of see that, but.
No, St. Petersburg is a beautiful city. The only thing that people from St. Petersburg, they think that we people from Moscow, we hate you, that we hate people from St. Petersburg, especially, But that's not true. We Moscow people, we hate everybody.
I think this is the opposite, actually. It's not like we think that you hate us. It's like we actually hate you.
You hate us. Okay. That's
like every country has exactly that. It's like if you're from Paris, you hate everyone from every other part of France, and everyone from every other part of France hates you. In Cork, we despise people from Dublin. A rivalry, not real hatred. We have the rivalry, and they hate us, and they call us. They say that we're from the village, and we think that they're snobs, and it's just normal.
But I must say, though, jokes aside, I really like St. Petersburg. I've traveled there many times, but last time I was there 4 years ago. And I must say that even 4 years ago, St. Petersburg was already way more user-friendly than Moscow. We, for example, translations in the metro. In Moscow, we had them for the first time, I think 2 years ago. They started implementing this.
It wasn't there when I first came there.
For World Cup, yeah. And in St. Petersburg, they already had it. They had maps on every street and every corner in English. So foreigners can, not only foreigners, even Russians can orient, find any place, the right directions to any venue or to any museum or whatever with no problem. So I don't know. I always liked it about St. Petersburg.
I would say one thing. I mean, what surprises me is that compared to Shanghai, both St. Petersburg and Moscow are way less user friendly for English speakers. I mean, I get the feeling that it would be difficult to live here. You have there's an American comedian here and a Canadian comedian here, and I talking to them and stuff. The Canadian guy speaks very good Russian very well, but the American guy was kind of learning it and stuff. And I think it'd be very difficult to be him. I think he'd have a much harder time than I had in China, even because there's just so little. Like you said, the trains weren't done in Russian, but menus in China are you always have the translation in English. At the very least, it will be Google Translate translations. So you can get something instead of small spring roll, you get a small spring roll or something. It'll be a bad translation, but at least you have a rough idea of what you're eating.
Well, true. I mean, we cannot translate everything. I mean, there are almost 18 million people living in Moscow, so. And the main language is Russian, so not everybody speaks English. However, after the World Cup, I think it's changing. As in the bar, during the open mic at Prosto Cafe, when you were ordering beer and you're trying speaking Russian, they go, just speak English, man. Why are you trying to speak Russian?
It's like every other country in the world. If you try and speak a little bit of their language, they're like, "Oh, thank you so much for trying," and "Oh, it was wrong, but it's okay," And in Russian, they're like, "Ha, you idiot!" You're just you're wasting your time. Just speak English. It's you every time you try and learn, you get this brick wall of ambivalence of don't even bother, just go away. So yeah, it's a tough language as well. It's you guys don't realize how bloody difficult.
Well, not as difficult, I think, as Chinese.
No, Russian is way harder than Chinese because
really,
because in Chinese you have no grammar. It's you get the words, you throw them together, and it doesn't really matter the order. if you're really fluent, so you'll know that certain words should go at the start and certain words should go at the end. But there's no plural. Like you just guess whether or not something's plural. There's no like past tense, future tense is all pretty simple, and there's certainly no tense. Like what is it? You guys have like tenses, like different
cases as well.
Yeah. So like if it's he did something or she did something, the verb changes, and they did something, the verb changes. It's like that in Irish too, but in Russian it's like there's so many that it's like it's a maze, you know.
And so you were saying that in Shanghai they're like it's more user friendly, like for foreigners.
Yeah.
So they really like foreigners.
Yeah.
Is it true? Like even Russians, do they like Russians and other?
I would say that in Shanghai there's a huge Russian community, and not only Russian, like Ukrainians and
Slavs, basically.
like these countries, and also like Westerners. There are just too many people from many countries because Shanghai and China, they're developing right now, and a lot of opportunities, big salaries, just everything is easy.
Comedy as well.
Comedy booming and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. You know, it's really crazy how big the scene has gotten in 5 years. Because we had we had slower times, but now it's really taken off and stuff. It's everything is taking off in China.
And you told me that it's basically every time it's packed.
I wouldn't say it's always packed. I would say that we had a thing there. At the start of this year, the club that I formed with in China had a thing where from New Year until about April, we didn't have a weekend where we didn't sell a show out. So every weekend we sold at least one show out. But many times we sold out 2 shows.
Right.
So you always had a good crowd, and they were always up for comedy and stuff. And so that's great. I mean, that's really great. And it's not just one club. There's a few different clubs and stuff. So even though you've got a lot of there's a lot of exposure to it, people aren't getting tired of it, and it's actually growing. Like I definitely got the feeling it was growing until I left anyway. So I don't know what it's like now. But
is it mainly foreigners on your shows, or Chinese people as well who speak English?
The ratio varied. I would say from about 50-50 till about 80% foreigners, 20% Chinese. Or maybe even less Chinese. But you could assume that the crowd would be mostly expats and some things, but then you'd have times where it was half and half, and you'd have to maybe tweak your jokes accordingly to get the other, you want to get everyone laughing. So I would always try and throw in some jokes that I geared more towards the Chinese crowd and stuff. So
what do you think about crowd yesterday? Like we had about 90 people, including some comedians, our comedians who came to the show. What do you think about yesterday's crowd?
I thought they were great. I thought that they, what I really liked is that I was worried that because of getting out to the venue is kind of weird. You're going downstairs. First of all, you're going to this through a gate, and you find the wrong door, and then you eventually get there, and you walk into a co-working space.
That's Russia.
And you go down the stairs, and then you get to the place. And so I thought that would make people feel a bit weird. And so by the time that I would go on stage and try to talk to them, they'd be shy and nervous or not really understand what was going on. No, I thought that they especially at the start, there was a lot of people were engaging with me very well, and they were happy to chat and whatnot.
We had quite a few foreigners yesterday.
Yeah, and they were very varied in where they were from and stuff, which was kind of cool. They were from lots of different places and stuff. So you say there was an Irish guy there.
Yeah. I think the guy who burned you, I think, during the
show. So I did actually get a bit of a burn that I won't be talking about what the content of the burn was, but he did very well. I wasn't going to follow. I had another joke coming behind that joke that was discarded because I couldn't follow what he said. But yeah, what did you think of the show? Did you think it was pretty well?
Yes, I mean, as I told you, told you before, that it's the beginning of our headliner of the month season. You're the first who we brought you, and we had full overbooked room for basically yesterday, and the reaction was great. I really like that we had people who already came to our shows before, and they brought new people. A lot of new people came to the show, and they all liked it. That was amazing. And despite all the complications about getting to the venue, and all the kind of stuff, people were coming, and the room itself was good. So.
Yes, it was. And what I like about it is that you can vary it so that if you think you're going to get 200 people, you can make it fit 200 people. But it definitely seemed let's say you have a huge room that seats 200 people, but you only get 100 people. It looks empty.
Yes.
Whereas there, that looked full, that looked completely full. But if you needed, you could make.
Yeah, we could have made it bigger.
Which is
Yeah,
like
of course.
perfect for a comedy venue. Like you couldn't ask for better.
And I really enjoyed your set, even though like we couldn't listen to everything like behind the wall because green corridor.
Yeah, and it's
dressing room.
like Byron sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah, Byron sandwich. Oh, that sounds so wrong.
I know.
So you're going to St. Petersburg, and you've never been anywhere else
In Russia?
Yeah.
No, not yet. No. But I have plans. I'd like to go further east and stuff and see some more stuff. But
I've already been east.
yeah, I know, not that far east, but yeah, somewhere kind of more. I've always had like notions of doing the Trans-Siberian and stuff and seeing how that goes. But if I could convince Alina to come with me, maybe that would work. But Alina's a bit.
Just trying to explain him that this is just a train. And that will last for a week. That's it. That's the end of adventure.
Yeah, but like for some people, like the idea of being on a train where your phone signal doesn't work for a week is like the best thing ever. It's nobody can contact you. No social media. Oh my God, beautiful.
I would do a show there.
Yeah, on the train. Yeah, exactly.
Comedy train.
Yeah, the way you have cruise ships and they have comedians on the cruise ship. We can do that with trains. We can do Trans-Siberian.
I would love to do that.
We'd be at the front and rotate people as
Trans-Siberian comedy, man.
Yeah,
Imagine that, like in the middle of nowhere in Siberia with bears, alcohol.
There's a train breaking down every 2 minutes. Going
and people that don't speak English.
People know a word of English. Everyone drunk, and it'd be great. Yeah.
But I think you would enjoy it. I think you would enjoy it. Like my friend, he's from Scotland. He's from Glasgow. His surname is MacLeod.
Oh, nice, nice. Like what's it called?
Like a Highlander.
MacLeod clan. Yeah, of course.
He's like his family is from the islands, and 4 years ago he took he was doing like a trip around the world, and he went to Russia. He spent 1 week in Moscow. That's where we met, and then he took the train across Siberia. This Trans-Siberian Express, right? And he told me, like when we met in Edinburgh in August, he told me like that was the best experience out of all his travels. Because like he was, he was scared, of course, going in the middle of nowhere. But since he had like a very good experience in Moscow, he didn't expect anything bad. And he didn't speak Russian, of course, but he was traveling like in this train on his own. Like,
that's great.
With no knowledge of Russian whatsoever, and people would come up to him and he'd be like, "Are you a foreigner?" He'd be like, "Yes." "What the fuck are you doing here?" He's like, "Well, I'm taking the Trans-Siberian Express."
Like
no, we got it. But what the fuck are you doing here? We live here. Why? Like you are in the middle of nowhere. You're in the middle of nowhere. And then he told me that everybody was coming to him and just. And to their friends and be like, "Oh my God, check it out! There's a foreigner in that plaska." And everybody would come up to him and just look at him, and just touch him like a real Scotsman, like a real Scotsman.
We already had that experience in China.
Oh yeah.
Even though the trains were not that long, but every time Chinese people see you on the train, you are white and they are not. They comment like, "Are you from Russia?" They like if they see somebody who has blonde hair and blue eyes, immediately like Russian.
Are you Russian?
Yeah.
Course,
And I don't have like blonde hair and blue eyes, and that's why when I tell them that I'm from Russia, they're like, "No, you're not from Russia. You're probably from Kazakhstan."
That's racist.
Oh my God! Welcome to China, man. That's how it is. I used to have this scale where if I had my beard like short, people would talk to me on the metro all the time. They think I was friendly, and they'd always try to talk to me like, "Let's make friends, let's be language partners." And then I grew my beard really long, like down to my chest. Alina loved it. It was wonderful. No, it was really ugly, but I noticed that nobody ever spoke to me. Like they were terrified. Like people were like, "What is this guy?" I must have looked like a biker or something, some guy in the gang. So it was a scale of like I'd always know when my beard was too long, and people weren't talking to me. It's like, okay, better bring it back before people are freaking out and stuff. It's like. Yeah, it's if you don't experience it, like if you don't ever see a foreigner in your life, I'm sure the first time must be pretty wild.
So you want to say that if I go to China, if I come to China, I would have no problem gaining popularity there.
Geez, I don't know about that. With your blonde hair, I think you do pretty well. I think you'd be trending on their Twitter by the end of the week.
They have Twitter?
Weibo, they have their own version.
Okay, all right. Because I thought that Facebook and Instagram was
all blocked, and of course, part of the reason that they're blocked is that they have their own stuff, and you don't want to compete with
of
Google.
Course.
If you can avoid it, don't.
True that. Okay, so next stop China. All right, that's
Yeah, but do it, man. But I told you, you should definitely do it. You should try it. I think you'd love it.
Oh, we would love to do. We would love to go. I would love to go to China, and of course, like my crew would love to go to China.
And consider maybe also doing like Southeast Asia and stuff. Like
Singapore.
Singapore is a great, like, if you can do like, they really love comedy. There's 2 clubs there, and then they love comedy, and they always, like, the show that I was there, was packed, and I didn't think it would be. I don't know why it was, but they always get good crowds and stuff. Love comedy. I would say maybe try Hong Kong, Japan. There's a few rooms around Japan and Tokyo and Korea and stuff. So yeah, I would definitely do it. But obviously you're gonna have the visa problems. Is the only thing. It's like who gets what visa, and those are a nightmare.
Russian passport, man, the most useless thing in the world.
Right.
The most useless 48 pages you can ever get in the world. They tell us that you can. We don't need visa like to go to South America, to most of the countries in South America.
Is that right?
Yeah, but in order to get there, you have to sell your kidney. It's just because it's too damn expensive, to go there. It was even for 1 week, so it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, that's true. Why would you go there for a week?
You would like to go there for like more than a week. All right, cool. So I think we've covered everything like for the first. Thank you very much. It's your first podcast as well.
My first podcast, yeah. I've kind of avoided them up until this point, because like a lot,
But you couldn't resist.
I couldn't resist. I couldn't go all the way to Moscow and say no. How could I say no? So it's thanks for having me.
Pleasure thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure having you like for 2 shows here, and we'd love to have you again, like in some time. Please return.
I'd love to.
Maybe the same room, maybe bigger room. It would be awesome. Alina, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for taking care of this gentleman over here.
That has to be said. Thank you very much. Otherwise, I would have been still in the airport, and my suitcase would definitely still be in the airport because we had problems with my suitcase. So,
You are very welcome, guys.
Thank you very much.
I brought you together.
The star of the show,
Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you, I guess, next week. All right, that's it.
Silly me, being a star in China. What a dream. But I digress. Thank you very much for listening to the first episode of the weekly Russian Comedian podcast, and I hope you liked it. If you did, press like and please subscribe. Apologies for problems with the sound. Following weeks will have a much better quality. Tune in every week to learn more about lives of comedians, stand-up shows, and who knows what else from the heart of Moscow. My name is Denis Nikolin, aka Russian Comedian, and I'm not sure I'm gonna stick with this late-night radio host persona every time. Probably not.